How's it going, everyone? Mafar here. Welcome to Heliopolis Radio. And today I'm joined by a special guest. And so we've got Mac, Scotty, McGregor. And so, yeah, Mac is quite a special individual that we have on our show today. And he's going to share a bit about himself. So, Mac, I just extended over to you. Feel free to introduce yourself. Tell us about, what you do. And yeah, just go at it.
Well, hi, Mafaro. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm in Seattle, Washington, where we're a bit snowed in right now. But
Yeah, no, I've been seeing on the news, and it's like, yeah, when down in Africa, the side is the exact opposite, and I'm like, I don't want to be there. Definitely
I
don't want to
love
be
Cape
this time.
Town. Yeah, I love Cape Town. Been there and really love it there. So that's where you said you are now, and I just love that area.
Yeah,
Uh,
no.
yeah, so I have a long history, a martial arts background. I started martial arts when I was a child at 6 years old, and I call it my soulmate
Nice.
because I truly believe that it saved my life because I came from a dysfunctional family and it
Yeah,
gave me a healthy place to put my energy.
that's
And
good.
I ate it up, like I was the kid they had to kick out of the dojo and tell me to go home at night.
Oh wow. Yeah, no. I think we all have something, particularly in our childhood, that we hang on to as kind of a source of like spiritual comfort, right? Something that
Yes.
just helps us get through the difficult times. And so I
Yeah.
don't know if I actually really figured out what mine was in particular, but I would say nature for me is kind of
Mhm.
my solace for the most part. So I tend to kind of rely on that in tough times. But again, sorry I interrupted you there. So
Yeah,
continue.
no, that's a nature is another one that does that for me too. When I need to ground, and a lot of times I'll get out in nature as well. So I understand that. Yeah. So I was, eating up the martial arts basically and training. This is my 51st year as a martial artist. And
Uh,
when I was 17, I won the US fighting title, and that opened up doors for me. And I began traveling
uh,
nationally and internationally competing. And I was on the US karate team for many years until I was 39, basically on and off until I was 39. And I won two medals in the world championships at 39 years old.
wow,
And yeah,
wow, that's incredible. So actually, that
yeah,
was since you kind of went into it, I was actually going to ask. So you're a former U.S. karate member, and that's
yes.
quite the achievement. I have a friend of mine who made the SA team, the South African national karate team, and that's a massive achievement because you get like the blazer. It's called the
Oh,
green
yeah.
blazer. Yeah, so it's a very prestigious honor. So I just wanted to ask. Just kind of the journey towards that, and it takes
Mm.
quite a significant skill. I don't know what your I know there's a certain ranking system. I don't know if it's called the third Dan, fifth Dan. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
pretty terrible with the with the intricacies of it. But yeah, I was just wondering how was it, and just how was that journey towards achieving something like that?
Well, it was an amazing journey. Like I said, it grounded me and it gave me a healthy place to put my energy. And I made lifelong, friendships, training with people throughout the years. And it just taught me a lot of life skills, a lot of things that I turn around and teach now
Hmm.
when I'm coaching guys and people in positive masculinity. I are from my martial arts background, are life skills I learned from martial arts. I have a fourth degree black belt or higher
Wow.
17 different martial arts. And my highest is a 10th degree in Shorin Karate. And a
Sheesh.
10th is as high as you go.
Wow.
So, yeah, so
You're a very dangerous individual. Very
I'm
dangerous.
actually I'm actually the guy you want to have a beer with because I can take care of whatever happens, and the smartest way to win a fight is to not get into a fight, right? So
100%. You know what I realized? Most trained martial artists, they are actually very, very nonviolent. I think the
yes,
level of discipline that they acquire through the rigorous training, it kind
that's
of
right.
creates a certain warrior spirit that kind of makes you, I don't know, it's actually the opposite of what you think people would get into martial arts for, which is to, maybe have some power to have leverage over someone in a fight, but it's actually the opposite. It's self-control, it's self-discipline, and self-mastery more than anything.
It is, and one thing I'll say about what you mentioned, when you have that confidence that you have all these skills that you could really hurt somebody,
Hmm.
it also makes you think really seriously about using it, right? Because I know I can hurt somebody and hopefully I can come up with better ways to solve this problem, right? Is what I think constantly.
No.
And what I think most martial artists that are, especially people that have trained a long time like I have, we don't want to have to use it because we don't
Yeah,
want to have to
no,
hurt anybody, right?
no, no, 100%. I
Yeah.
hear you on that one. And I was
Yeah.
actually going to ask you because, I mean, again, your experience is just so diversified. You were Seattle City Commissioner, and so I was just
Yeah.
wondering, yeah, for about 5 years, how was that?
Well, I'm
Uh,
still a Seattle City Commissioner, actually. I've been
oh,
a lot
okay,
longer than
okay.
5 years. Yeah.
Oh,
I've
okay.
been
My
on,
bad. Apologies about that.
that's okay. I've been on two commissions now. I was on Seattle's LGBTQ plus commission. I was the co-chair of that for about 5 years. And now I'm on Seattle's Renters Commission. We were the first city in the United States to form a Renters Commission to advise the mayor and city council about renters' rights.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
to help protect renters in the city because the prices here are crazy. They've
I
gone
can
sky high.
I can only imagine the economy right now is a very sensitive topic for most people. I mean, I can actually attest to that. I wish we would have something like that going in Africa, but it's a whole different story and so
It
on.
is.
So,
Yeah. And anyway, I enjoy that work because it is, like I get to a red line, a hotline to the mayor and city council as a commissioner to talk with them about things that are going on in the city and how, you know, policies are affecting everyday citizens.
wow, no. And so again, so obviously, in today's world, it's a very controversial, sensitive topic. I mean, in particularly here in Africa, the LGBTQ and the transgender community, it's now kind of opening up because here we are more, we come from I want to say a traditionalist background, so things are still very rigid. So ideas and concepts of how people express themselves and feel themselves, not that it's a thing that people just don't want to accept, but it's just the cultural foundations that, this place was built upon. It's hard to just kind of, shake them and shift them. So I was actually going to move in as a commissioner. You also helped the Seattle Police deal with policy for training and dealing with transgender community. And I was just wondering, how does that actually work? In particular, I don't know in my mind how it works. Is there certain protocols or, if you just like to elaborate on that, if you.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm a transgender guy, and due to my extensive teaching experience in the martial arts and public speaking from all that I did there, when I, transitioned, a lot of people in the community said to me, we need someone with your teaching experience to help explain this journey to people who don't understand it. Because I have this extensive teaching experience, I'm able to do that. And one interesting thing, due to my martial arts background, people like police officers and military folks, they respect the warrior aspect of me, right? They expect my accomplishments in the martial arts, right? That speaks the language. So then they'll listen to me about other things. Right now, I'm still commissioned. I am teaching for the Seattle Police. Every new recruit has to go through my gender class before they go into the academy. It's a requirement. So that is pretty amazing. So they're learning Gender 101, the same thing I speak at colleges and things about. I've also taught the U.S. Border Patrol about this because if you think about it, police officers and Border Patrol folks, they stop somebody and check their ID. And sometimes in the transgender and gender nonconforming community, their ID may not match their presentation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. It takes access to money and resources to get those things changed.
100%. Yes.
Not everybody has that. And so one of the things I do is educate these folks on the fact that a transgender person isn't trying to fool you. It's just that it takes access and it takes certain resources to get these things done. And not everybody has that access. And so I help them understand this. And so then I also humanize the trans and gender nonconforming community, so they realize it's easy to have ideas about a group of people over there that you've never met, shook hands with, and had a conversation, right? You and I sitting here looking at each other, having a conversation, we see each other's humanity.
Yeah, 100%.
And that changes the game. And that's some of what I'm doing with these folks is just helping them to understand we're human too, and we basically want the same thing everybody else does. We want to feel safe. We want to have access to good health care and housing and education, just like everybody else, right?
No, and I completely agree. Look, I was actually going to ask, because now what you really do in terms of promoting, or actually not promoting toxic masculinity as per se, there's always a lot of confusion around that, right? Because, we ask ourselves, what is masculine and what is feminine? And, what I've noticed and what I've paid attention to is that I feel society, and this is just a personal view, is that we've moved from the idea of a strong man and woman, per se, as archetypes. I think when we think of feminine, people are always associated with not traits of like vulnerability and weakness, but what it really means to be compassionate, to be sensitive, to embrace others without judgment.
Nurturing.
Yes, to be nurturing, but if you've always looked at society as a whole, the masculine and feminine have held an equal balance, meaning that people have always had to be strong. There's never been, I feel like the weak-mindedness is not like a gender type thing. It's a societal type thing. It's more of an issue with the mind per se. I don't know if you would agree, but you would know better. Being a transgender, you could probably actually maybe attest to how you perceive this. So I feel like maybe from the masculine side, men feel maybe ostracized for embracing maybe the more rudimentary sides of masculinity. So like you said, you did karate, so there's aggression, there's sometimes a bit of blood involved, and some people will be like, oh no, that's toxic masculinity. But maybe to you, especially as a fighter, as a warrior, that aspect of you, that's very much part of the conditioning. It's actually forming the character building part of it. So I was just wondering, how do you feel people should navigate this whole the whole incorporation of the masculine and feminine principle? Again, I don't know if I jumbled my words or it didn't make sense, but I had to ask the question.
It's a big subject, right? So it is hard to bring it down to one concise question.
It's very broad.
Yeah, what I do in my book, Positive Masculinity Now, and what I do in my work with my nonprofit, Positive Masculinity, is I get people, though, in the book, this is for men and women, anyone can do this. I get people to go back to their socialization around gender when they grew up and look at it with an adult conscious mind. In other words, we got all kinds of messaging about what it was to walk in the world as a woman or a man when we were growing up. Some of it was the way the adults in our life modeled that to us. And some of it was things that people said you shouldn't do, like boys, you're not supposed to cry. If a boy cries, he's being told right away, don't cry, right?
Yeah.
When his sister can stand right beside him and cry, and it's fine. Right. So
no, I hear you. I don't have any sisters, but maybe I'm glad, so that maybe been a bit unfair to experience that. I would agree, but no, I hear you. Yeah.
I mean, it could be a sister, a cousin, a friend, whatever. But I mean, I'm sure you've seen that when a little girl cries, it's fine. But when a little boy cries, a lot of times they're told not to, right? That they're supposed to toughen up, right? It's just very different messaging. And what I get people to do is go back and re-examine that as a conscious adult and figure out, does this still serve me well? Yeah. And you can look at each message, right? Like boys are told, don't ask for help because that's a sign of weakness. We're supposed to be self-sufficient. We're supposed to always be strong, right? And that is exhausting. We all need help sometimes. Right? And nobody can be strong 24/7. We just can't be. We need each other. And that is actually a message that keeps men like you and I from being closer friends, because we're afraid to open up to one another. We're afraid to ask each other for help. Right?
No, agreed.
We don't want to be vulnerable with each other because we think that's vulnerable, right?
Yeah,
vulnerable is not for the masculine, that's for the feminine.
No, it's true. I was going to ask, the difficulty always is, what is the dividing line? You know what I'm saying? because I would consider myself a pretty sensitive guy. I've always been the one who would cry. If I would see something sad, it'd affect me, and I wouldn't hide about it.
That's great.
But I was going to ask, what would you personally define as the dividing line between, what you've noticed is, and I realize this particularly when, and I don't want to say it in a very distinctive way because I'm trying to be very like clever with my word choice, but when men are around women, just the feminine energy, naturally, there's exploitative nature. When you say you're indulging your feelings too much or you're taking advantage of people, like that whole feeling sorry for yourself type thing. I don't know how to explain it, but you get what I'm going at. Like, just because it's afforded to you to be sensitive, you take it and you take it to the fullest. Like, you actually become destructive, just like with the masculine, being strong and being very stoic. You take that to the next threshold where, like you said, you're unyielding, you're uncompromising, even to a certain level of foolishness. When you're being foolhardy with your strength. What would you say is like the boundary line for you for that? Like, what's going too far? Like, you know what I mean? Because everything has a balance in life. I honestly believe that there's a balance in everything. But I mean, humans, we have a tendency sometimes to overindulge and abuse things just because it's in our nature. It's a mental thing that we do. We take advantage, so.
Yeah, I would say that the pendulum swings, right? The pendulum swings. And define balance. Now that's what I would call the master class in the martial arts is getting life balance, understanding how to balance things in life, including our emotions, right? Men shouldn't shut their emotions down because we were all created to be emotional beings. And the highest suicide rate is among middle-aged men. Why is that? I think that's because we've stuffed all these feelings down for so long. Right. And then we end up realizing how unhappy we are in middle age and feeling empty because we don't have any close relationships because we haven't let anybody in or opened up to anybody. Right. But there is a balance in that. And there's discernment. The biggest thing I would say with that is discernment as to who to share with who to share your feelings with. Right. Share them when you're in a supportive place. Not when you're going to get, because some guys ridicule each other, right? If some guy shows too much tenderness, some other guys will, start picking on him, right? Hey, you're being a wuss, and tell him to toughen up. So that wouldn't be a good place to share your feelings. It's about using, some discernment about when and where to do it.
Yeah.
But also when you first start letting them out, they may flood out because you've held them in for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's just realizing that you find a place where it's safe for you to do that. And then, you'll get to a balance. You'll get to a balance in life. One of the things I've created in Positive Masculinity, my nonprofit, is a monthly discussion group. It's virtual online that anybody can join from anywhere. I know sometimes it's tough with the time change, but we've created a safe environment for guys to get together and really share with one another, where our whole goal is to support each other there, is to foster one another's growth. So that's a really rare place to find a group of guys that you can open up with that are all there to help support your growth. And that's what we've created. And we have people now wanting to create groups like this all over the world. And I'm in the process. This next year, we'll be developing a facilitator course so folks can learn to be a facilitator, to have a group in your area.
And just coming down to the Positive Masculinity now and how you've grown your, I don't know, it's not really a business. I wouldn't want to call it that because it's much bigger than that. But yeah, just the journey into developing it. Maybe if you could just explain that and just how much it's evolved. Again, you've just explained some of the procedures that you have going that people can participate in. I was actually going to mention it at the end, so I didn't forget about it. But now that we're on it, I was just going to, give you a head, and you can explain what it is that you do and how people can participate, and also maybe because again, your demographic it extends past the U.S. borders, obviously. So how other people, like you said, different time zones, different situations, circumstances, backgrounds, how they can also,
Well, my whole vision starting this was, I saw gathering men from all kinds of different ethnic backgrounds, different ages, different life experiences, gay, straight, bisexual, different, just different orientations all over, to come together and first of all heal from the way the patriarchy and toxic masculinity has hurt us. Now, I will say it's hurt us because it's limited us and put us in boxes, right? And told us we have to walk in the world a certain way to be considered the man. And everyone doesn't fit into that, right? There's a big spectrum of masculinity. Like, we understand now that sexuality is a spectrum, right? It's not just gay and straight. There's a big spectrum. It's the same thing with masculinity or femininity. There's not one way to be masculine. I mean, we could look at, a whole bunch of men, you line them up, and on one end you have the physical warriors, like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Rocky Balboa. We can go on and on, all those guys, right? And on the other end you have Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, and you have Bill Gates. Very different forms of masculinity, right?
Yeah.
Very different, but they're still masculinities, right?
Yeah, no.
And it's okay. So yeah, there's this huge spectrum, and I try to get everybody to understand that we don't all have to be the physical fighter guy, to be healthy masculine people. But we shouldn't try to push everybody to be one way, right? So yeah, so I had this vision of all these guys getting together and healing from that, and then together working on creating a healthier model of masculinity to go forward for all of us, including women. Because women have been put down by, traditional and toxic masculinity. LGBTQ people have been put down by traditional and toxic masculinity. So have guys that are artists and more tender guys, that just don't fit that traditional masculine model. Yes. So we teach workshops. We have blogs on our website. You can subscribe to read our blogs, and we are always asking for new blog writers. So if you're interested, there's information on there for you to write a blog for us, and because we like different perspectives in this. We want to hear from different people. We've even had women that have come on and written blogs for us about their relationships with their fathers and how that's affected their lives, right?
That's always a major one. Actually, it comes down to the parental dynamic more than anything. Our understanding in the way we conduct ourselves, particularly in our adult phase, at a subconscious level, the relationship, the most pertinent one I actually have noticed, depending on who was there and who wasn't. It usually is the father, because there's always a major issue there, but also with the mother as well. Those who are raised without mothers, they don't have that sensitivity. They maybe don't have that emotional awareness or IQ, if you want to call it. And then you have those without fathers, people who maybe don't have necessarily some type of moral compass or a certain foundation of just, not principles that are fixed, but just a way of going about life that's non-destructive. That's well regulated. And so the actual question, I think the one I was really, because this is the most difficult one, is we understand that we live in a world where you always have people that will want to hold on to the traditional matriarchy and patriarchy. You're just going to have people like that. And the whole essence of human society is to be able to collectively work with people regardless of their ideas and beliefs. So you mentioned toxic masculinity, but there'll always be people that view their toxic masculinity as non-toxic. So I was going to ask you, how do you harmonize, or how would you want to see harmony exist between someone who is a strictly patriarchal person? How would you want to conduct a dialogue with them? You know what I'm saying? Even as a Black person, there's always going to be someone who's racist, and there's someone who's going to have a firm belief in it. But the question is, how are you going to be able to conducively have a dialogue with that person without trying to change them? Because I feel like you can't really change people at a fundamental core unless they change themselves, but you can learn to engage someone, and you can take care of your business so they can take care of their business, and it doesn't always have to be a problem. So I was wondering how you see that going forward, because yes, you draw awareness to toxic masculinity and some of the destructive traits of it, but there are always going to be those people. So I was just wondering how you want to harmonize and how you prefer to live in harmony with people who perhaps portray toxic masculine traits.
Yeah, good question. I totally understand what you said. As a Black person, there's always going to be racist people, and as a trans person, there's always going to be transphobic people, right?
Yeah, no,
So
no,
I
I
understand
understood.
that totally. One of the things I do and I teach people to do is find a commonality. I actually had an experience where I was on a very conservative radio show program, and
Hmm.
this conservative radio show host is known for just eating people alive. I mean, he's a tough guy, right? And I was going to be the first trans person he ever had on the show, and he
Yeah,
was having me on to talk about the issues of people being afraid to use the bathroom, public bathrooms with trans people. So I knew this is a hot issue,
yeah,
right?
no, no.
And what I did was him and I had a little time to talk before the show started, and we found, and I was keen on finding commonalities. Well, he likes to hike, so do I. He likes to fish, so do I. Well, we started talking about that, and then I met his wife, and my wife met his. They met. We all met each other, and we started talking about things we liked. We then talked about the fact that we're both dog lovers. We all
Hmm.
both of our families have dogs, right? And we talked about
Yeah,
that.
no, no,
All
that's
of a
all.
sudden, all of a sudden, we're seeing each other's humanity, right?
Yeah.
And then he changed. And you know what he actually said to me? I'm sure you've heard this from some racist people too. Well, I'm not sure about most trans people, but you're okay.
Yeah, no, no. No, you get it. You get it.
Because I felt, but what that does is opened his mind a little bit,
Yeah.
right? Even if it's just a little bit, it lets a little light in, and that's okay. Because we can't be responsible for totally, like you said, changing somebody. They have to want to change.
Hmm.
But that makes him see the humanity in at least one trans person. So
Mm.
then maybe he'll look a little deeper the next one he meets, right?
No, no, that's very true,
No,
and it's
yeah,
it's
finding that
amazing.
commonality is it, I believe.
No, and again, it's actually important. I mean, in Africa now, I think it's not that this place, in actual fact, despite what maybe the outside perception is, there's a lot of advancements being made societally. I mean, yes, economically things are bad, but in terms of mindset, there's a massive shift. And so, I was just wanting to extend this question: what would you hope to see? Not just within the US, but in terms of the world, just how the transgender and LGBTQ community are treated as a whole. What would I don't want to say realistic expectations, but what would your basic expectations? Everyone has a basic expectation and desires. It's a human thing. So I was wondering, what is in your mind are the basic expectations? And so, yeah,
The basic expectations. I
basics,
would
yeah,
just
no.
like us, yeah, I would just like us all to realize that someone else's love or someone else being their authentic self is not a threat to you or anyone else out there, right? It's not a threat to someone else's marriage or someone else's house or who they are for me to be true to who I am. And that's the thing. I want you to be able to be true to who you are, and I would hope you would want me to do the same. And it's not going to be a threat to your life or anything in your life, right?
No, no,
Yeah.
I hear you on that one, and I'd actually definitely enjoy having you on the show again. As I just realized now, we're actually ticking for time, and it's actually a very immersive conversation. And you're a very, very, very wise person indeed, Mac. And genuinely, your heart is pure and good. And I think more than anything, we need people like this in our society to make sure that it doesn't fall into complete, disintegration where there's a fragmentation of people who just do things and people can work more collectively and we can find common ground and there doesn't need to be ideas or misconceptions. To be honest, I myself didn't know how I was going to conduct the interview because, again, you don't want to always say anything that's ignorant, right? And we always have those instances, and it's not just in terms of transgender, LGBTQ, Black, white, Asian. It's just a
Yeah.
human tendency to not, really think of someone's circumstance and their situations, how they feel, and how they want to conduct their experience in this life. So I genuinely appreciate you for coming here and sharing it. I think a lot more people who tune in, not that I have a large audience, but the people that do tune in, they'll definitely be more enlightened and they'll be more open and they'll be more accepting and appreciative of people and their uniqueness and differences. And so, yeah, I just wanted to ask if you could share any means of contact. I know that you have your website. It's www.positivemasculinitynow.org. And then you can also follow Mac on Instagram at Positive Masculinity Now. And then are there any other modes or means of communication?
Positive Masculinity Now. We have a TikTok channel is growing as well. So yeah. No. And you can get my book, Positive Masculinity Now, through Amazon, in Kindle and in print. And probably in about March of this next year, the audio book will be coming out. I'm in the process of recording it now.
No, man, and I'm wishing you all the best with that process, and I'm excited. It's always good to extend your reach. And so you said it's audio. Did you record the audio yourself, or did someone else do it? I've always wondered how that part works.
Well, some authors do it themselves, and some hire someone to do it. I'm doing it myself.
Wow, no, that's incredible. That's incredible, man. No, and I hope that you enjoyed your time on the show again, and definitely hope to have you again. I feel like it'd be interesting to have this with other people in the call as well, just to have a complete. It's always important to have the circle going where I guess talking to me is just one person, but I hope that it extends to others, and I guess that's essentially your mission as well. And so, yeah, Mac, thank you so much for hopping on Heliopolis Radio. I truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.